Good evening. I trust you've had a fruitful day. I do not say happy, though I hope it has been a very happy day. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the blessed, noble, and fully self-awakened one. So we're going to move on. This is called the wilderness of the heart. The wilderness of the heart. So here's the Buddha now. He's back up in Savatthi, which is the capital of Kosala. That's the northern part above the Ganges, obviously below the Himalayas. And he's at Anathapindika's park. Remember, Anathapindika was a merchant who went out of his way to pay a lot of money for this ground. So he covered with gold, that's what he says. He used to be Prince Jeta's. Bhikkhu. And any bhikkhu who has not abandoned the 5 wildernesses of the heart and not severed the 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this dharma and discipline. This is impossible. So we have 5 wildernesses and 5 shackles to get rid of. And when we talk about the dharma, of course, it's the teaching, one of ethics. It's not one of, it's not one of morality. Monks also are not supposed to kill other beings, and etc., etc. The difference is that monks have institutional rules and regulations. So these have not got to be confused. It's not some sort of huge moral dilemma whether to eat before noon or not. It's just a rule that is kept by the monastic order. And the reason is that any group of people who live together, whether they like it or not, create rules and regulations. Mostly they're hidden, they're covert rules. So you don't go playing music at 2 o'clock in the morning if you're living with your family or with friends. There's all little rules that nobody ever makes explicit, but they're there. And remember that these rules that the monastics have came about because of naughty monks and nuns. So what are these 5 wildernesses? Here, there is doubt, uncertainty, undecidedness, and lack of confidence in the teacher, heaven forbid. And thus the mind is not inclined to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. Okay, so you have to have confidence in the teacher. The distinction between that and having a sort of blind faith is really important. As I'm sure many of you know, we've had some really bad cases within the in Buddhism in the West of what can we say, definite heavy misbehavior by teachers. You are always, as far as I remember, it's always men, and it's always to do with sex. So one has to be careful that one doesn't sell your soul to the teacher. One always keeps a certain distance, a certain quality of gentle, should we say, inquiry, a certain critical ability, right? Or else you just become a slave. And the point is in Buddhism, of course, in the Buddhist teaching, is that what the teacher's supposed to be doing is guiding you along the path. So as you yourself are practicing, you'll know whether these instructions are any good or whether the teachings you're being given are helping you. See? So that's it. It's important that we have confidence in the teacher. I remember when I first worked with Buddhist teachers, but when I met Sayadaw U Janaka, who was the Mahasi teacher, a direct disciple of the Mahasi, there was just this feeling in me, this is the man, this is the one. And luckily it turned out to be true. The other thing we do with teachers, of course, is overestimate where they are. I mean, that's always a bit of a problem. You always think the teacher's more attained than they actually are. And I've definitely made that mistake. So don't never guess where your teacher's at. It's not important. It's not important because in a tradition, what they're doing is passing on the tradition. Right? It's not important where they are in the scale of things, although it's always a benefit if they've experienced what they're teaching. Then there is a lack of confidence, the same thing, but a lack of confidence in the Dharma. So this again comes back to your actual experience. If your meditation is actually helping you in your life, then obviously it's working. So any doubt should be undermined by that. And reading, when you come across passages which you don't understand or things that you doubt, like rebirth, the existence of gods and heavenly realms and all that, then, you know, in Buddhism, it's not a belief system. One always puts that on the back burner. You know, there's no proof for it and there's no proof against it. It's just the way it is. It's the same with Nibbana. If you're a committed scientific materialist, then Nibbana is something that you experience in this life in momentary forms or not at all. So that's undermined by recognizing that we don't have to believe anything, right? Then again, there's confidence in the training. So the Dharma, I suppose, there was meant for the actual teaching, the intellectual business, and this is about the training itself. So here we come across this terrible thing about lack of success. You know, as meditators, we're always looking for some progress. You know, like where's the progress? So remember, when we first start, there's an immediate effect. We're lifted by the practice, and because we're taught to look at things differently, there's a whole sequence of insights that we make when we first begin. But then, of course, you hit the plateau, and that's when the work starts. So remember that progress is a bit of you have to be careful with the idea of progress. I always think it's better to think in terms of the heart, in terms of you know, whether we're becoming kinder, more gentle, more compassionate, etc. That for me is an easier telltale. And of course, you can't look over a week. You can't say, how much have I progressed this week? Because sometimes you dip and then you've got to climb out of the hole and rise a bit. So it's basically looking over the past years, even 2 or 3 years, and then you realize, yeah, you know, I have progressed. Then there's anger and displeasure with companions in the holy life. It can be jealousy. You know, somebody's sat there for 3 hours and not moved, and you're fidgeting about, want to get off after half an hour, and there's all this jealousy comes up and envy. So one has to accept that as unnecessary. And obviously, in a meditation retreat, sometimes we get angry with people who sneeze and whatnot. And sometimes it's very peculiar, but you can suddenly find all this aversion coming up towards somebody, even though you don't even, well, you might have met them at the beginning of the retreat. You know nothing about them, but there's something about them that reminds you of something that you're very angry about. So the one great thing about spiritual companions is that you don't have to like them. Right? They're there as support. And that's quite a liberation when you realize that. You don't have to like your spiritual companions. I don't have to like the monks I live with. Right? As long as they're keeping the rule and they're practicing, they are a support to me. And that's great. So these are the 5 wildernesses of the heart. Yeah? So we'll come back to them right at the end. Now then, there are these 5 shackles, my goodness. So here, a bhikkhu is not free. Now, he keeps translating this word raga as lust, but it's actually a sort of passion, a sort of overindulgence, a got-to-have feeling, that sort of feeling. Because lust has obviously a meaning of sexuality about it, but it's like it's anything that you're obsessive about. Free from that sort of obsessive need, you know, free from desire, affection, thirst, fever and craving for sensual pleasures. All right. So that's the first shackle, always wanting to find something pleasurable for the senses, to look at, to see, to hear, to taste, etc. Then there's the same thing, he says, craving for the body, and this is referring to our own body. And I can only presume this is, you know, being over solicitous with our bodies, caring too much for our bodies, being worried about our bodies, always wanting to make it look beautiful, stuff like that. Not accepting it as it is. And then it says the same thing, this obsessive desire and the affection and the thirst of people for form, and this refers to other people's bodies. Okay, so that obviously can be a bit lustful, but it's that you know, it becomes a shackle of something that ties you down. And then, of course, there's eating as much as he likes until his belly is full, and indulges in the pleasures of sleeping, lolling, and drowsing. So these are, especially in this lockdown, this was really one of the dangers. I think I mentioned in that very first opening talk that you have to be, you know, you have to give yourself something to do. You have to have some sort of challenge, or else you start eating too much and you start just hanging about. And it's a funny thing, but the more you hang about, because the body gets slothful, and you've got to get up and give it exercise. The lights have just gone off. Thank you very much. They've come back on. I've got a problem with the lights. So that's a big shackle. Ties you down. And then there are other practitioners who aspire to some order of gods. In other words, they want, everything they're doing is to be reborn in a happier realm, and that's obviously, I mean, it's not an evil thing to desire, but obviously it's well short of our real goal, which is nirvana. So these are the 5 shackles of the heart that have to be abandoned. And of course, he says that any practitioner who has not abandoned these 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed these 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase fulfillment in the Dharma discipline. That is impossible. So there's our task, you see. The 5 wildernesses, we'll repeat them at the end. And then, of course, the whole thing is repeated for people who actually have abandoned these things. So we don't have to read through that. Then, towards the end, he also says that he must develop the basis of spiritual power, goodness power, punya, a real building up of energy, just like these, you know, people who pump iron, you know, like of energy, just like these, you know, people who pump iron, you know, like they want to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and they're committed to winning the exhibitions and all that sort of stuff. So it's that the exhibitions and all that sort of stuff. So it's that sort of commitment. And these are the iddhipada. We've actually done them in the past, or the paths to the best translation, path to success. Sometimes it's put as the path to power, but it's the path really to success. If you want to succeed in anything, these 4 qualities are needed. So the first one is a real desire, a real longing for nirvana, or for anything in your life. Yeah, if you've got to really want it. And then he develops the basis for spiritual success, consisting in concentration due to energy. So wanting something is not enough. You've got to put your energy into it, your energy and determined striving. And then he develops a spiritual power consisting of concentration due to the purity of the mind and determined striving. So purity of the mind is not, this is for really anything, really, to have good intentions. When we have good intentions, of course, that's very empowering, you see. So it's a case of giving ourselves really wholesome intentions for doing something. And in this case, to become liberated from suffering. That's a good intention. Huh? And then the final one is develops the spiritual power consisting in concentration, investigation, and determined striving. So this investigation is really keeping that ability to be, to be able to be constructively critical about things. To keep awake, not to just do something. For instance, you might set off doing a task and then realize that, if you keep doing this, you're going to exhaust yourself, or it's not really working, but you ignore that, you keep striving, and in the end, you end up with a failure. So it's always this business of, taking stock as to where we are at any one time. And it's definitely true in the spiritual life. One can just sail along, doing a bit of meditation, doing a bit of that. And then what realize is that, no, you've got to put a bit more energy into it. And then sometimes you really go for a bit more energy, and you realize you're putting too much energy. And in fact, you're just over efforting. And that produces also a sense of, not getting anywhere. So that ability to have that critical faculty constantly with us. So that ability to have that critical faculty constantly with us. And the fifth one, it adds on to these four. This isn't part of the idiopathic, it is a sense of enthusiasm. Now, it's translated enthusiasm, but the word itself is a sort of exertion, and it's often coupled with another word, usaha, which means a strength or power. So it really means he's really stressing this real complete full throttle energy to achieve the goals, right? Now, as soon as you say that, people, we think, oh, I've got to be a stream entrant. I've got to get through the 4 attainments. But that would be the wrong thing. Those are our aim, the objective, right? The aim is to get there fully liberated to Nibbana. But the objective, the present moment-to-moment objective, is, of course, to establish that affectionate awareness at all times. It doesn't have to always be affectionate. It can be just a cool investigative awareness, but it's got to be there. And that's the effort. So at the end of the day, when you look back and you think, have I been mindful all day, you see? So don't get upset. There's no point getting upset about it. It's just a reflection that, yeah, I should have put more energy there. I should have woken up. I should have held myself, etc. For instance, I had to go to the shops, and I went at the wrong time. There was quite a long queue, and I was standing in the queue there, and I could feel this irritation coming. Why don't we get on with it? And unfortunately, there was a woman came out. She looked at me, and I think that sense of irritation was on my face, unfortunately, and I could see her turning away. So that's the way it is. So so now we've got these 15 factors, okay? So then he gives the usual little metaphor. Suppose there were a hen with 8, 10, or 12 eggs, which she had covered, incubated, and nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, oh, that my chicks might pierce through the shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely, yet the chicks are capable of piercing their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely. So too, a meditator who possesses the 15 factors, which include also this real exertion, is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Okay, so there's the present. There's the gift at the end of all this striving. So if we go through that rather quickly, doubt in the teacher, in the Dharma, and in the community, the Sangha, doubt in the training, and being angry or jealous with our companions. and then to get over this craving for sensual pleasure, craving around our bodies, over solicitous around our bodies, craving for other people's bodies, overeating and sleeping. That's all one, and making an aspiration for a better life after death isn't quite what we should be doing. If that happens, all well and good. And then we have to get, so that's the 5 wildernesses, the 5 shackles, and then finally we have to develop this sense of zeal, of real desire, longing, with the energy, the purity of heart, the critical faculty, and this all-powerful struggle, exertion to attain the goal. And of course that, and always remind ourselves, we're not trying to attain any mental, we're not trying to attain any spiritual attainment, right? We're trying to establish a moment-to-moment mindfulness. This is the secret of success. That's the Mahasi. So at the end, of course, unlike the discourse we heard yesterday, the bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So I think he must have been happy about that. So I can only hope that this helps you to become enthusiastic about your practice, that you will struggle. The struggle continues, la lotta continua, until that final day when you are completely liberated from all suffering, and may it come sooner rather than later. So we can do some sitting.